Hello and welcome to today's The Last Trade Week Ahead video. Now in today's The Last Trade Week Ahead video, we'll be taking a look at two stocks. I'll take a look at Groww, which is the stockbrokers, and then I'll take a look at Bank of Baroda. And for both, I'll share my perspective. For Groww, only via equity because it's only in the equity space, while for BOB, I'll share my equity and FNO trading plan. But before we go into all of that, let's take a quick look at the news affecting our markets this week. Now coming to the news, primarily the two news things which will really affect our market open on Monday. Number one is going to be the Iran and US issue, but that's sort of come like a daily routine now because Trump doesn't know how to get out of the war. Iran doesn't know how to also end the war on its terms. So both of them are just throwing a few missiles every couple of days towards each other and then letting it go on. In fact, you can even see the effect of that on the commodity prices. For example, crude oil last week was pretty stagnant, as any up move which came, the next day got wiped out by a down move. So it has ended up going completely range bound, and that is the sort of scenario which is happening there. But the second news to affect our markets heavily on Monday is going to be that the US markets had a very bad fall on Friday, and that will benefit me and my clients because we sold calls on Friday. But that will be affecting our markets on Monday, and we have to see how far the effect is going to be, because let's say if we gap down, then will the gap down be extremely large? If it's extremely large, we won't get a follow through. If it is a normal level gap down, then we can get a follow through to the downside, or a small bounce and then a follow through. So that's going to be interesting to watch how it is. But I believe anyone who's trading Monday's trading session in the indexes or stocks, whether it be IT or anything, do not hold a bias, as the market is going to have to adjust to that news. And also we have many factors locally which are also messing up our markets, whether it's high taxation, whether it's a mess of the fuel, and so many other things which are happening. So that's really it on the news front. Now we'll take a look at Groww, after which I'll take a look at Bank of Baroda. Now coming to Groww, now Groww has IPO'd not that long back, and after that Groww has been one stock which has been doing way better than a lot of the rest of the Indian stock market. As a lot of the market has fallen, but Groww has managed to maintain itself slightly above the IPO price in terms of everything. Now, as Groww is not in the FNO space, so I will only cover this from an equity perspective as what to do. Now, in my perspective, Groww, basically, if you look at it in terms of simple analysis, Groww had a good fall. You can see my volume bar had picked it up here. The trend catcher had picked it up and everything, and it had a good fall to a very strong support at 182. 182 it ended up holding, and is now trying to go for a bounce. Now, according to me, Groww most likely in the coming weeks is more likely to head downwards. And this which is happening is most likely just a short-term bounce to trap in new capital. So how do I look at Groww in terms of a trading plan? Now in terms of a trading plan, I believe if Groww holds, as long as it holds between 205 and 182, this is a stock that is not really going to go anywhere. Between this zone, it is sort of going to just bounce within the zone and trap both sides. However, the people who are looking for breakout, if it breaks 205, it will do a quick dash to 218, and that is where it can trap the most amount of capital, after which it will come down. So my point of view of Groww is, if it breaks out of this range, then there's a quick long trade to here and then you exit. On the other hand, if it breaks out, if it goes to this point and shows weakness, then it will be going to be going back to 182, 171 and 152. So my view of Groww is that even if it rises to 218, if you're looking at it for a short-term trader perspective, then this is a good stock to just go along and then get out from it. But do realize that this is going to have different metrics from something like Reliance or CFC, because the holding period is different of Groww than those. And so that perspective has to be also kept into account. So my trading plan for Groww is pretty simple. If it breaks 205, I may take a quick long to 218, exit, as I believe then it will be coming back down towards 182, 170 or 152. So what I mean, let's say if you look at it a few months down the line, I expect it to be at 171 or 152. That's how I look at the picture of Groww. So that's really it for Groww. Now let's take a move to Bank of Baroda. Now Bank of Baroda has had a pretty rough time in the past few weeks. If we take a look at the chart, we can see it had one mighty fall, and then it has had a bounce, and then after that it basically stopped midway of the fall and has sort of entered a box range, which is this way. But now since we're in the box range and Bank of Baroda is in the future segment, so I'm going to take a look at this more from the futures perspective rather than the equity perspective. This is as an equity. I don't think there's much in for any investor in Bank of Baroda right now, as the pressure is more towards the downside. So now how am I going to trade Bank of Baroda? Now according to me, Bank of Baroda, as I said, okay, this is a big box trend, but if you look at it in terms short term, let's say 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks maximum, Bank of Baroda is it has two very strong resistance zones. The first one at 273 and the second one at 279. Then it has a very strong support between 250 and 254. However, there is a small, not a quant support zone, but a simple price candle support zone at 260. So my trading plan for Bank of Baroda is going to be such. Between 250 and 279, Bank of Baroda for me is only an intraday trading candidate. So intraday via futures or option buys, nothing via option selling, because intraday option selling does not make sense. So intraday via futures and option buys. If it breaks 260, I will take a shot to 254 and 250. Max, this can go to an overnight trade, but not longer than 1 day in terms of a holding period. However, if it breaks 250 rupees, then it is a clean shot to 238 rupees. On the other hand, if it manages to clear this resistance zone, then is when it will become a candidate for equity traders and for long traders even in F&O. Why am I saying if it breaks this zone rather than this strong resistance it formed? Because if it breaks this zone, it will have broken a very strong quant resistance level, and that will be more important than even this zone can be in terms of price impact. So my trading plan for Bank of Baroda is pretty simple. Between 250 and 279, only intraday trading. I'm not even going to sell the range via option sales, because I think the minute it pops out of this range, option sellers, let's say if you sold calls and you sold puts, your puts are going to bleed so heavily that even the calls are not going to save it. So my perspective within this range is only intraday or overnight at maximum. If it breaks 250, then I'll short it to 238 via futures and via option sales. So basically short via futures, and then I'll sell calls. On the other hand, by chance it breaks 279, then I will start looking at it to a big perspective of an equity trade plus option sell trade of selling puts. So that is my sort of a plan for Bank of Baroda. If you liked it, then hit that like button and click the notification bell and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.